To make his true love happy, Gareth always believed her no matter how hard I tried to convince him otherwise. I told him that she was deceiving him, that her smiles were sharp and her intentions were poison, but he thought I was just jealous. He never once believed me, and that was the tragedy of Gareth and me. Before the lies, before the money hardened him, Gareth and I had grown up together. We were neighbors in a quiet, unassuming suburb where the biggest event of the year was the summer block party. We spent our childhoods building forts in the woods behind our houses, scraping our knees, and making childish vows that we would be best friends forever. By the time we were in our mid-20s, our lives had taken drastically different paths. Gareth was a 25-year-old business mogul. He had inherited his father's company, but it was his own ruthless intelligence that turned it into an empire. He was wealthy beyond comprehension, entirely professional, and famously, intimidatingly cold. He wore tailored Italian suits like armor. He never let anyone get close to him, physically or emotionally, because in his world, attachment meant vulnerability, and vulnerability was weakness. I was 24, far from wealthy, working 2 jobs just to pay the rent on my cramped apartment, and desperately trying to launch a career as a journalist. Yet, despite the massive chasm between our social statuses, I was the only person he actually trusted. We still did everything together. On Sunday mornings, the ruthless CEO would sit on my thrifted couch, in sweatpants, eating burnt toast, and listening to me read my article pitches. I cherished our friendship more than anything in the world. I also harbored a deep, agonizingly secret crush on him. I never confessed my feelings. I knew his heart was a fortress with the drawbridge permanently raised. I convinced myself that being his best friend was enough. Then Brianna happened. It was a chilly evening in November. Gareth had dragged me to a high society charity gala as his buffer. I was wearing a rented dress, feeling entirely out of place among the glittering elite. And then, the doors opened. She was 23, stunningly beautiful, in a way that made the entire room stop and stare. She wore a backless crimson gown that clung to her every curve, dripping in diamonds that caught the light of the massive crystal chandeliers above us. She came from the same untouchable, upper-crust world as Gareth. When they were introduced, I watched Gareth's stoic facade crack. He was instantly mesmerized. Brianna was wild, unapologetic, and fiercely dominating. She commanded attention and demanded obedience, and Gareth, entirely blinded by her exotic charm, fell for her hard and fast. But Brianna was perceptive. The very first night she met me, as she linked her arm through Gareth's, her sharp, dark eyes locked onto mine. She saw exactly what I felt for him, and worse, she saw the quiet, steady trust Gareth had in me. She immediately saw me as a threat. Her domineering nature quickly turned into calculated sabotage. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, agonizing poison. At first, it was subtle. She would accidentally delete the voicemails I left for him on his private phone. She would plan lavish weekend getaways on the exact days she knew Gareth and I had long-standing traditions. Then, it escalated. She began spinning webs of lies. She told Gareth that I was using his name to get into exclusive clubs, that I was asking her friends for loans, that I was leaking minor details about his personal life to the tabloids for my journalism career. Gareth, you have to listen to me. I pleaded with him one afternoon in his sprawling corner office. I was shaking, tears welling in my eyes. I would never betray you. She's lying. She doesn't want me around. Gareth stood behind his mahogany desk, looking at me with eyes as cold as the glass windows behind him. Brianna showed me the bank statements, Tessa. She showed me the texts. Why would she lie? She has nothing to gain. You, on the other hand, you've always struggled. You think I would take your money? You think I would sell you out? I whispered, my heart shattering into a million pieces. I think, he said, his voice terrifyingly calm, that you let your jealousy get the better of you. Brianna told me you've always resented my wealth. I didn't want to believe it. But the evidence is clear. She fabricated it, Gareth. She's framing me. Enough. He pointed toward the door. I don't want to see you anymore, Tessa. You are a liability to my business and a toxic presence in my relationship. Please leave. The coldness was absolute. Slowly but surely, the door to his life slammed shut in my face. I was shut out, blocked, and eventually, he forgot all about me. Over a year passed. It was the hardest year of my life. I spent the first few months grieving the loss of my best friend as if he had died. But eventually, anger replaced the grief, and determination replaced the anger. I let go of the ghost of Gareth and threw myself entirely into my writing. I hustled, I networked, and finally, my dream began to take shape. I was 25, making a genuine name for myself as an investigative journalist at a respectable publication. I was healing. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed the name of Mark, Gareth's lead assistant. Tessa, please don't hang up. Mark's voice was frantic, breathless. Mark? What is it? Has something happened? It's Gareth. He was in a terrible car accident. My stomach plummeted, the old instincts of care rushing back before I could stop them. He suffered severe head trauma. Tessa, he lost his memory. He doesn't remember the last 2 years. He doesn't remember the company expansion. He doesn't remember his house. And he doesn't remember Brianna. What? I gasped, sinking onto my couch. He's terrified of her, Mark pleaded. She keeps trying to touch him, and he keeps screaming for her to get out. He's completely disoriented. He's begging to see you, Tessa. You're the only person he remembers. He won't let the doctors treat him unless you're there. Against every ounce of my better judgment, against the walls I had built to protect my own heart, I went to the hospital. The smell of antiseptic hit me the moment I walked onto the VIP floor. When I gently pushed open the door to his room, the sight of him made my breath hitch. The powerful, untouchable CEO was gone. In his place was a pale, bandaged man looking wildly around the room. But the moment his eyes landed on me, the panic vanished, replaced by a profound, desperate relief. Tessa, he breathed. He reached out with a trembling hand, ignoring the 4 lines taped to his skin. I walked over, cautiously letting him grip my hand. Hi, Gareth. I'm here. They keep bringing this woman in here, he whispered, his eyes wide with genuine fear. Brianna. They say we're together. They say she lives with me. Tessa, I'd never be with a woman like that. She looks at me like she owns me. I don't trust anyone in this place. I only trust you. Please, don't leave me. I swallowed hard, pulling my hand back just a fraction. Gareth, she is your girlfriend. You love her. You chose her. No. He tried to sit up, wincing in pain. I don't believe it. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't push you away. Stay with me. Take care of me. Just until I recover and get my mind right. Please, Tess, you're my best friend. Hearing him call me his best friend after a year of dead silence was a cruel, beautiful kind of torture. For old time's sake, and because seeing him so broken tore at my soul, I agreed. I stepped out into the hallway to find Brianna pacing like a caged panther. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed with pure venom. What did you say to him? She hissed. Nothing he didn't already know, I replied coldly. Look, Brianna, I don't want to be here any more than you want me here, but he's refusing treatment. I will stay at his estate to help him recover and help him regain his memory of you. Once he remembers, I am gone. I have my own life now. Having no other choice against Gareth's stubbornness, and knowing the doctors sided with whatever kept the patient calm, she reluctantly agreed, though her glare promised retribution. For 3 months I moved into a guest wing of his massive estate. It was a bizarre, fragile existence. Without the crushing weight of his corporate empire, and without the toxic, whispering influence of Brianna constantly in his ear, the ice around his heart melted. A different Gareth emerged, the boy I used to know, but grown into a thoughtful, gentle man. We spent hours in the sunlit conservatory. He would watch me cook in his massive, unused kitchen, leaning against the counter and asking me endless questions about my journalism career, looking genuinely awed by my accomplishments. I read to him in the evenings as his headaches subsided, and slowly, painfully, I watched him fall in love with me. One evening, as we sat by the roaring fireplace, the silence between us shifted from comfortable to electric. He was looking at me with an intensity that made my heart race against my ribs. "I don't know how I never saw it," he murmured, his voice low and raspy. "Saw what?" I asked, looking up from my laptop, trying to keep my voice steady. "How beautiful you are." He stood up, walking slowly over to my chair. He knelt beside me, reaching out to gently tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His touch sent a shockwave through my system. "How kind and brave and brilliant you are." "Tessa, I don't want Brianna. I don't care if I ever remember her. I don't know why I ever fell for someone like her when you were right in front of me the whole time." I stood up abruptly, my laptop nearly sliding to the floor. I backed away, my heart pounding in my ears. "You can't say that, Gareth. You don't mean it. You're confused." "I've never been thinking more clearly," he insisted, stepping toward me. "I want you. Give me a chance. Let me show you how much I love you." "No!" I cried out. "You're going to get your memory back, Gareth. And when you do, the spell will break. Brianna will be waiting, and you will look at me with the same cold, dead eyes you had the day you kicked me out of your office. I will not let you break my heart twice. I don't care about my memory," he shouted, raw desperation cracking his voice. Day after day, he begged me. He followed me around the estate, pleading his case, trying to break down the walls I had spent a year building. He could see that my resolve was holding, and the thought of me leaving him drove him into a frenzy. On the final night of my 3-month stay, my bags were packed by the front door. Gareth saw them, and something inside him snapped. In a moment of pure, terrifying panic, he ran out through the glass doors of his second-story master bedroom and climbed over the iron railing of the balcony. "Gareth, what are you doing?" I screamed, running out into the freezing night air. He was standing on the narrow stone ledge, the wind whipping his shirt around him. He looked down at the courtyard far below, then back at me. His eyes were completely wild. "If you walk out that door, if you don't accept me, I don't want to live," he yelled, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I'd rather die right now than live a life where I go back to a woman I despise, without the woman I love." "Stop this act, Gareth," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face, freezing on my cheeks. "Get down, please. The moment your memory returns, you'll forget I even exist. You'll hate me again." "Never." He took one foot off the ledge, balancing precariously. "Even if I remember every second of my life, I will always choose you. I swear it on my life, Tessa. I will die before I let you go." I was utterly terrified. My whole body shook as I slowly held out my hand. "Fine. Okay. Come down, please, just step down." He hesitated, studying my face to see if I was lying. "I'll go on one date with you," I bargained, my voice trembling. "But only if you get in your car right now, drive to Brianna's house, and officially end things with her. Tell her to her face that it is over for good. Only then will I give you a chance." He stared at me for a long, agonizing second before he grabbed my hand and vaulted back over the railing, pulling me into a fierce, crushing hug. I could feel his heart hammering against mine. "I will," he whispered into my hair. "I'll do it right now. I'll be back for you, Tessa. I promise." He grabbed his keys, completely ignoring his bodyguard, and sped off into the night to break up with Brianna. But he never made it. On the winding mountain road leading to Brianna's neighborhood, the rain began to pour. As Gareth navigated a sharp turn, a heavy black SUV suddenly swerved across the double yellow lines, heading straight for him. Gareth slammed on the brakes, the tires shrieking against the wet asphalt. His sleek sports car spun out of control, hydroplaning before violently crashing into a concrete barrier. He suffered a minor head injury, a nasty gash above his brow, and a heavy concussion. But the physical trauma was enough. The impact jarred his brain just enough to shatter the psychological block that had been shielding his past. That very night, in a sterile hospital room, Gareth's eyes snapped open. The fog had lifted. He remembered his childhood, his company, his wealth. He remembered the arguments with me, and he remembered the wild, intoxicating nights, the dark passion, and how obsessively he thought he loved Brianna. The soft, gentle man I had spent 3 months with vanished in the blink of an eye. The coldness returned, frosting over his features. Feeling incredibly guilty for how he had pushed Brianna away and treated her with disgust during his amnesia, he called her to his hospital room in secret. She arrived weeping, playing the victim perfectly. "Oh, Gareth, my love," she sobbed, throwing her arms around his neck. "I thought I lost you forever." "I'm so sorry, Brianna," he whispered, burying his face in her neck. "I remember now. I remember everything. I don't know what I was thinking or doing these past few months. I love you. I'll make it up to you, I swear." They slept together that night in the private hospital suite. He promised her the world, promised her diamonds, vacations, anything to prove his devotion. Brianna traced a manicured finger down his chest, a victorious smirk playing on her lips. "Prove it," she purred. "Cut ties with that pathetic journalist. I know she was living in your house. Get rid of her. Completely." Feeling he owed it to Brianna for the pain he caused her, Gareth didn't even hesitate. "I will," he agreed. "It's done." He didn't call me. He didn't text me. He just had Mark arrange a meeting at a public cafe near my apartment the following afternoon. I arrived early, my stomach tied in knots. When Gareth finally walked in, the way he moved told me everything I needed to know. His posture was rigid, his expression impenetrable. The warmth in his eyes, the warmth I had bathed in for 3 months, was gone, replaced by the familiar, freezing distance I thought had melted away forever. He sat down across from me. He didn't even order a coffee. "I remembered everything, Tessa," he stated flatly, his voice devoid of any emotion. I froze, the noise of the cafe fading into a dull buzz. "Gareth." I remembered my life, and I remembered how much I loved Brianna. He looked at me, not with hatred, but with absolute indifference, which was somehow worse. What we had these past 3 months, it wasn't real. It was a symptom of a broken brain. I was confused. "You took advantage of that confusion." "I took advantage?" I whispered, tears instantly pricking my eyes. "You begged me to stay. You stood on a ledge and threatened to jump. And I deeply regret my irrational behavior," he countered smoothly, like a lawyer dismissing a flimsy case. "I am returning to my life now. I don't want to see you again. Mark will send you a check for your time and the inconvenience of staying at my estate." A check he was offering to pay me off like an employee he was firing. I swallowed the massive lump in my throat, blinking rapidly to keep the tears from falling. Deep down, I had known it would end exactly like this. I had told him so on that balcony. I nodded slowly, gathering my pride around me like a shield. "Keep your money, Gareth," I said softly, standing up. "Goodbye." I walked out of the cafe, feeling the crisp air hit my tear-stained face. I didn't look back. That night, I packed my bags, broke the lease on my apartment, and moved to a completely different city 3 states away. I changed my number. I deleted my social media. I was ready to finally, truly start over. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was that Gareth had eventually grown suspicious of his second accident. He was a meticulous man, and something about the crash report didn't sit right with him. The black SUV had vanished without a trace, leaving no skid marks that indicated an attempt to brake. He hired a private investigator, a ruthless ex-detective named Vance, to look into it quietly. A few months after I had left the city, Vance walked into Gareth's corner office and dropped a thick manila folder onto his desk. "You were right to be suspicious, sir," Vance said grimly. "It wasn't an accident. It was a targeted hit, meant to run you off the road. But that's not the worst part." Gareth opened the folder. Inside were grainy surveillance photos, offshore bank statements, and printed text logs. "What am I looking at?" Gareth demanded. "The money trail," Vance replied. The payment for the driver of the SUV was routed through 3 shell corporations, but it originated from a trust fund in Brianna's name. "She orchestrated the crash, sir, likely hoping the trauma would jog your memory, or at the very least, stop you from reaching her house that night." Gareth sat back, the blood draining from his face. "Brianna, there's more," Vance continued unremittingly. "While I was digging into her financials, I found other anomalies dating back 2 years. Payments to an IT specialist to fabricate text messages. Payments to your former bank manager to falsify financial records. Sir, Brianna orchestrated the entire framing of Tessa. She systematically destroyed your friend's reputation out of pure jealousy. And she's been secretly sabotaging Tessa's early career behind the scenes ever since." Gareth stared at the documents, the letters blurring together. The sheer weight of the realization crushed him. His entire reality, the woman he thought he loved, the friend he thought had betrayed him, had been an elaborate, sickening illusion crafted by a monster. He had traded the only pure, genuine connection in his life for a woman who tried to kill him. Furious, consumed by a rage so dark and absolute it terrified his own security team, Gareth moved swiftly. He didn't call the police. That wasn't his style. He had his men intercept Brianna as she left a high-end salon. They threw her into the back of a van and drove her to an abandoned, rusting warehouse Gareth owned on the outskirts of the city. He kept her tied to a steel chair in the freezing dampness for days. He didn't lay a hand on her, but the psychological torment was severe. He stood in the shadows, playing audio recordings of her bank transfers, confronting her with the evidence of her lies. He let her sit in the dark, isolated, terrified, and hungry until she broke. I'm sorry," she screamed into the empty warehouse, a weeping, disheveled shell of the glamorous socialite she had been. "I only did it because I loved you. She was going to take you away from me. Please, Gareth, let me go. I beg you." Gareth stood over her, his face a mask of absolute wrath. "You ruined my life. You destroyed the only person who ever truly cared about me. You are nothing to me now. If I ever see your face in my city again, I will make sure the police get these files, and you will rot in a cell." He walked away, leaving her weeping on the concrete floor, finally letting his men cut her loose to run off into the night. With Brianna gone, Gareth turned his singular, obsessive focus toward finding me. He thought it would be easy. He had resources, money, and power, but I was smart. I knew how the wealthy operated. I had hidden my tracks perfectly. I used a pen name for my articles, lived in an apartment leased under a friend's name, and stayed entirely off the grid. It took him a full, grueling year to track me down. When he finally found me, I was walking through a beautiful, sunlit botanical garden in my new city. It was a crisp autumn day, and the leaves were turning brilliant shades of gold and amber. I heard footsteps behind me, heavy and frantic. "Tessa." I stopped. I knew that voice. But when I turned around, the man standing before me was barely recognizable. Gareth looked terrible. He was exhausted, his skin pale and drawn, heavy, dark circles under his eyes. His suit hung loosely on his frame, as if he had forgotten to eat for months. He looked entirely broken. "Gareth," I said smoothly, my voice calm and collected. He rushed toward me, stopping just a few feet away, as if afraid I would vanish into thin air. "I found out everything," he choked out, his voice cracking. Brianna deceived me. She lied about the texts, the money, she caused the crash. I know everything now. I punished her, Tessa. I destroyed her life like she destroyed ours. Tears streamed down his face, cutting tracks through the exhaustion. He fell to his knees right there on the gravel path, ignoring the stares of passing strangers. I love you, he wept, looking up at me with profound, agonizing despair. I've always loved you. I was so stupid, so blind. I've spent every day of the last year searching for you, hating myself for what I did to you. Please, Tessa, please come back to me. I'll do anything. I'll give up the company. I'm begging you on my knees. I looked down at the man who had once been my entire world, the man I would have died for. I waited for the familiar ache in my chest, the pull of my old love for him, but it wasn't there. Instead, a quiet, soft laugh escaped my lips. It wasn't vindictive or cruel. It was born purely of pity and of a deep, abiding relief that I was no longer chained to his chaos. Stand up, Gareth, I said softly, stepping back so he couldn't reach the hem of my coat. Please, stand up. He slowly rose to his feet, wiping his eyes, a glimmer of desperate hope flashing in his gaze. You forgive me? I don't blame you anymore, I told him honestly. I let go of my anger a long time ago. In fact, leaving you, being forced out of your life, was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. The hope in his eyes faltered. What? I finally got to be myself, I explained, a gentle smile touching my lips. I wasn't living in your shadow anymore. I wasn't waiting around for you to notice me. My journalism career took off. I'm a senior editor now. My dreams came true, Gareth, and... I paused, reaching up to adjust the scarf around my neck. As I did, the sunlight caught the simple, elegant gold band and the diamond sparkling on my left ring finger. And I found someone who truly loves me, I finished softly. Someone who didn't need to lose his memory to see my worth. I'm already married. Gareth's eyes dropped to the ring. All the color drained from his face instantly, leaving him looking like a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked as though I had just reached into his chest and crushed his heart with my bare hands. He stopped breathing. I have everything I ever wanted now, I told him, feeling nothing but a profound, beautiful peace. And I don't want to look back anymore. Goodbye, Gareth. I hope you find peace too, Tess. He gasped, a strangled, broken sound. Tessa? Darling, did you forget your coffee? A warm, deep voice called out. I turned to see Liam, my husband, walking down the path toward us. He had kind eyes, a warm smile, and he was holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. He stopped, looking at Gareth with mild confusion, then back at me. Is everything all right? Everything is perfect, I said, walking over and linking my arm through Liam's. I didn't look back at Gareth again. Let's go home. Liam kissed my temple and we turned and walked away down the sunlit path, our laughter mingling with the rustling autumn leaves. I left Gareth standing there, frozen on the gravel path. I heard through mutual acquaintances much later that he never recovered from that day. He realized too late how entirely he had taken me for granted, and how his fear of weakness had cost him the only real strength he ever had. Now, he spends his days locked away in his massive, empty estate. He drinks heavily, wandering the echoing halls of a home that will never know warmth. He lives out the rest of his days with the agonizing, suffocating regret of the choices he made. Forever haunted by the memory of the best friend he threw away.